Disruptive attacks that are that can be affect to performance a wireless network. Even though client usually don't like to perform tests that can affect the performance of a network, it is still important to perform those attacks to understand the impact and attacker that could cause the network. So previously we talked or try to perform some techniques using malicious hacker that would perform. So in this lecture we will be covering two main types of attack. The first type is the man in the middle, which is to intercept and multiply traffic of the user, and the second type that we are going to use is denial of service attack, and there are several techniques that can be used to fully disconnect someone from a wireless name. So the man in the middle, as their name it suggests, is an attack where we force someone traffic to go through a machine. So we can just have the traffic and just modify as we want. So you may be familiar with some of the main man in the middle techniques, such as like as example air poisoning, then some are like wireless, then penetration testing, that will be focusing on a wireless technique to perform man in the middle. So for their attack, this will be using our like online rough access point to intercept the traffic. The idea is intersecting and if dropping the traffic to capture some sensitive data, but we can also use it to block access to specific some resources. For example, to block a user from accessing their mail, or even inject and modify the traffic. So if you really want to get excessive on your testing, you can use this, such as beef, to inject malicious JavaScript into HTTP traffic, etc. like this. The step by step of the attack consists in first creating the rogue access point. As we saw in our previous lectures, connecting the rogue access point is a real network to a real network. How we can use this? So we previously described it. So the user then connect to the rogue access point to a real network, then it drop the traffic with like Wireshark, then it wait for user to before the Wireshark they wait for user to connect. And if you want to modify and inject packet using like two searches, which is MIT MF, but that's optional. So let's talk about non-disruptive types of attack. So what is non-disruptive? So I mean, this is the attack that does not affect the user and that are already connected to their component network, and that takes mainly user to connect to different network. But this will not cause denial service of attack because this is a wireless connection. So the attack covering like non-disturbing attack covering mostly, which is like eavesdropping, to which mainly does is listening to the traffic and trying to capture sensitive information such as password or cookies. The rogue access point is also known for like fake Wi-Fi's, which you would then try to load user to connect, and free captive portals, and which you try to lure user to type their password and unveil their password. Pre-engagement phase is where it starts with a client that discover test and with a great timelines. It is important to make clear of the client so that the potential packets of the test get a formal proof of any of the testing service. So you will be performing to bring pre-engagement. Then I also previously talked about pre-engagement, but let's just describe it. So pre-engagement has 5 main goals, and here is this. The first one is already we talked about, which is define a scope. and we will be talking about in our next lectures as well. But basically you want to define what and who will be tested in this engagement. The second phase is related to the collective environment information. So in most cases the client will provide you a list of wireless network that they can try to be in scope and at least of user that can be targeted. But in any cases, as do you remember that you are running your own reconnaissance technique, because in some cases system administrator may be not aware of some as a network in the environment. The third phase is scheduling the test, which is the name as says. It uses schedule a date and test to be performed with the client. The fourth phase is to communicate to stakeholders, which means it inform other affected parties about the upcoming test as a red teaming exercise that include test to a human behavior. So I recommend from only the very necessary people inside the client, for example in front of like CEO and one system administrator. That's because if everybody knows that test will be performed, people will be extra careful of this stage of the test. So we want people to be tested as a normal day. So the last phase is probably the most important, which is getting the client a formal sign off. The difference between a criminal and the professional is the document. So make sure you have it signed before you start any test, any types of test. To define the scope, we need to ask the client which areas of the company they want to be tested, which user can be targeted, how many days of the test we can perform the test, or any types of or any kinds of attack that will be performed. Some of the clients may not be willing to have their wireless network disrupted, so make sure you explain this impact in each of these attack. So the network the demonstrator will not be surprised if a user calls saying that the wireless network isn't stable right now. So as you can imagine, it is important to have a hope while define this user you are not passing. So any critical business areas of this company without any authorization is not suitable. So it's better to just get the permission and get a better idea about what is better for the company. An eavesdropping attack occurs when a hacker intercepts, delete or modify data that is transmitted between two devices. Eavesdropping, also known as sniffing or snooping, that relies on unsecure network communication to access data transmitted between the devices. To further explain the definition of an attack with eavesdropping, it typically occurs when a user connects to a network in which traffic is not secured or encrypted and sends sensitive business data to the colleague. The data is transmitted across an open network, which gives an attacker the opportunity to exploit a vulnerability and intercept it via the variable method. Eavesdropping attacks can also or often be difficult to spot. Unlike other forms of cyber attack, the presence of a bug or listening device may not be adversely affect the performance of a device and network. Technical eavesdropping on a traditional telephone line was known as wiretapping. Since then, method of eavesdropping has become even more advanced. In tandem with development in technology, hackers have had the chance to cultivate new methods and channels for eavesdropping on digital conversation. Protocol analyzers can also use to record IP-based communication and can convert data into easily accessible audio files. Data sniffing is another common type of electronic eavesdropping. This method is mostly used to target business using local network, as well all communication within the network that are sent to the network ports. Hackers can tap into the system and intercept incoming data. Similarly, wireless networking can be easily manipulated if unsecure information reaches the network ports. Arguably, the most common form of eavesdropping is conduct using a device speaker using function or microphone. These types of eavesdropping attack most commonly occurs via a user's laptop, as the microphone can be activated discreetly and remote by a third party. In summary, we can say that these types of false, fraudulent Wi-Fi network are created solely on the purpose of carrying out attacks. We will find them in busy areas where users will have need to be connected. Like public areas, we can name, for example, public areas as libraries, parks, universities, colleges. They are spaces where it is more important than likely they are in a Wi-Fi network available for free to the user. If an attacker goes into a library and creates a Wi-Fi network with the name of Wi-Fi library, the victim might not suspect that it is really a scam. Therefore, they play with this option to create a fake Wi-Fi network without raising suspicious. In addition, in this attack of places, they have more option that they are users who end up connecting to this and able to achieve their goal. Stations and airports. In this, we find ourselves before busy places by people. In addition to many places, an airport, for example, is a perfect place to create a fake Wi-Fi network and steal information. A Wi-Fi eavesdropping attack can be successful since it is more than likely that there are offline users on the mobile, like foreign tourists or people who are going to spend many hours on and want to work on their computer. These networks take advantage of these types of sites with a lot of traffic on people and where users may also need to connect to the network. Especially, it can happen that there are people who spend hours and even take the opportunity to buy the ticket or anything. Malls. Similar to the above the malls, there are malls. So there are spaces where there can be many people in the same places of time. Wi-Fi network are usually available, but sometimes they do not cover the entire surface of the signal when the signal is weak. This causes users to try other network that they find without encryption. That is the opportunity for cyber criminals. Perfect opportunity. The more problems users have, the more options there are that they end up connecting with a fake network that they have maliciously created to steal data. Work centers. On the other hand, work centers, they are also good place for them to deploy rogue network and carry out what is known as Wi-Fi eavesdropping. We especially talk about places where there are workers from different sections and companies. They may need a conversation or need a connection at a point and the network does not reach well, and then they look for a separate Wi-Fi and then connect it to the cyber criminals on. This eavesdropping scenario demonstrates how a worker eavesdrops the communication between two wireless nodes. It shows a snapshot of the eavesdropping demo. So, the network includes two users. I name them as Alice and Bob, an AP and a hacker who is John. The messages between two network nodes are represented by a small box. Text to so the sequence of the picture is like: first, John sets his NIC to promiscuous mode that allows John to capture packets between Alice and the AP. Alice then sends the message to the Bob. That packets are sent from the Alice to the AP and then it forwarded by the AP to Bob. John captures the message since it's NIC and is configured to promiscuous mode, and its radio is tuned to the communication channel between Alice and the AP. Bob sends a message back to the Alice and the packets are forwarded by the AP to Alice. John captures the message which sent by the AP to Alice. So that's how the usual process it goes, how it does the eavesdropping. So that's all about the eavesdropping. A denial of service attack occurs when legitimate users are unable to access information system, device, or network resources due to the action of a malicious cyber threat. So these service affected may include email, website, online accounts like banking, or other services that rely on the affected computer or network. A denial of service condition is accomplished by flooding the target host or network with traffic until the target cannot respond or simply crashes, preventing access for legitimate users. DOS attacks can cost an organization both time and money while their resources and services are inaccessible. So, what are the common denial of service attack? There are many different methods of carrying out a DOS attack. The most common method of attack occurs when an attacker floods a network server with traffic. So, in this type of denial of service attack or DOS attack, the attacker sends several requests to the target server, overloading it with traffic, and these services requested are illegitimate and have fabricated return addresses, which mislead the server when it tries to authenticate the request. As the junk requesters are processed constantly in server, the server will overwhelmed, which causes a DOS condition to legitimate request. So the first one is in a SMART attack. The attacker sends Internet Control Message Protocol broadcast the package to a number of hosts within a spoofed source network protocol, which means IP addresses that belongs to the target machine. The recipient of this spoof package then will respond, and the target host will be flooded with these responses. A SYN flood occurs when an attacker sends a request to the connect to the target server, but does not complete the connection through. So what is known is there is a three-way connection or three-way handshake, a method that used in a transmission protocol, which means TCP or IP network, to create a connection between a local host or client server. The incomplete handshake leaves the connected port to an occupied status and unavailable for the further request. An attacker will continue to send requests saturating all open ports so that the legitimate users cannot connect. Individual networks may be affected by DOS attacks without being directly targeted. So if the networks are being service which means ISP, if the ISP or cloud service provider has been targeted and attacked, the network will also experience a loss of service. So let's talk about example of denial of service attack. So first one is ACK scan or SYN scan or FIN scan. So these techniques use similar approaches to check whether ports of the targets are open that can be exploited, and they also use to gather information as well as deny services. For example, the ACK scan technique is used to attacker to gather information about the target's firewall or access control list configuration. It features a scan via a target with an acknowledgement flag, which is mean ACK flag, that seeks to identify hosts and ports that are filtered or cannot be scanned in another way. Attacker watches the response from the router to understand the setup. The type of information that can be gleaned from this is particularly when combined with the SYN scan, as the target firewall or target type of firewall, it's a rule set and what kind of packets can get through the host. So at the same time, while collecting vulnerability information via scan, the attacker may also flood a router's open UDP or TCP port to make it crash. By initiating a connection attempt but not acknowledging the server response from the open port, then the attacker can keep the open port open and continuously flood the server with new requests, which is also known as SYN flood. The second one is Smurf. So in a Smurf attack, the malicious party will target a network whose configuration allow packets to be sent to all services or hosts on the network at once. This is accomplished by sending the ICMP packets to the IP broadcast addresses of the network whereby they reach the all computers. These packets will have as many as sources as the IP address on the target. So by default, the device of the network will then respond to the packet by replying to the spoof source address. This will also be flood the target machine with traffic and overload it or shut it down completely. There are few differences between Snarf and what we know as a ICMP flood or ping of death. And scene flood, third one, also known as hub open attack. This is a technique that exploits the TCP or IP three-way handshake. During a scene flood, an attacker repeatedly sends connection requests like scene packets to all ports on the server. Typically, a server then responds with a synchronization acknowledgement packet or sync or ACK packet from every port that is open. If a port is closed, it will respond to and or reset a RST packet. Usually, a client responds to SYN or ACK packets with an acknowledgement packet during a handshake. This is done to confirm that this is or it has received the server's sync or ACK and then communicate between them. That can be comments. However, during a SYN flood, attackers use fake ID addresses to send the initial sync packets. As a result, the server never gets a response to its SYN or ACK packets, and its ports remain open, and it cannot reset them. Before the connection times out, further SYN packets are sent to those ports, prompting the server to keep them open and attempt to establish a connection. This is because ports are saturated with these requests, leading to a denial of service. Teardrop. The teardrop attack exploits a vulnerability associated with the older system and TCP or IP implementation with packets that are very large. For intermediary system like router, the IP specification allow packets fragmentation, then afterward fragmentation are reassembled. However, a TCP IP fragmentation reassembly bug can be found in many older systems. The bug consists of their inability to reassemble the packets whose offset field overlap. Attackers then exploit their bug by launching a teardrop attack by sending packets with overlapping and oversized payloads, making it impossible for the receiver to get the system to assemble them or ultimately leading them to a crash. Also known as ARP spoofing or ARP attack, this technique involves sending ARP messages over a network to a link attacker MAC addresses to the IP addresses of its target. When this is executed successfully, the traffic intended to lead the target, which is instead to received by the attacker, then which leads to a denial of service. These types of attack can only be performed on a local area that use ARS. And the last one is Fraggle attack. The Fraggle attack, also known as UDP flood, uses the same approach as the Smurf attack by exploiting a vulnerability associated with the sending traffic to the IP broadcast address of the target, such as router. The main difference is that it uses a UDP traffic to flood a router or service instead of ICMP. The effect is to spoof the IP address of the source that get the request and then direct to the traffic from the network back to the router. Therefore, then it flooded all of it. Both the Fraggle and the Smurf target attack have largely been left behind as router no longer forward packets sent to their broadcast addresses. So that's all about denial of service as example on a wireless network. So guys, in this lecture we will be talking about deauthentication attack, which is disconnect any internet from the network. So but first there are some things at first you need to do, like you need to put wireless interface into monitor mode, because in default your Linux machine or the attack machine which you will be performing, like Kali Linux. So Kali Linux in default, which is your wireless mode is in manage mode, then what you need to do is you need to put your wireless interface into monitor mode. So which is very simple. First what you need to do is press IW config to see your list of wireless interface, and most of this wireless interface is set to manage by default, means that this device can only capture packets which have the destination MAC as the MAC address of the device, but our target is to capture all the packets that are within our range so that they are sent to the router or any other devices. So we need to set this mode to monitor mode instead of manage mode. So then before changing the mode of wireless interface, disable the network interface by simply typing ifconfig. This is the interface that you need to disable first. This interface may vary from machine to machine. Your interface may be like WLAN 1 or WLAN 0, so make sure you check yours. So disable that and run the command that will kill the process that could interface changing the wireless interface into monitor mode. So this command airmon ng check kill will kill the processes, and then WLAN mode monitor will enable the monitor mode. So where WLAN or WLAN 0 is the name of your wireless interface card. So as I said, it could be different, it could be WLAN 0. So let me show you later why this may vary. So put this will put this wireless interface into monitor mode, and after that again previously what we did is we did disable the network interface. Now we have to enable our network interface. So just type ifconfig WLAN 0 up and it will appear network interface, and it will give your wireless interface card into monitor mode, and then simply type iw config, and as you can see it's now on monitor mode. Then there are another process. We need to start to capture or sniffing packets using aerodump ng. So what is aerodump ng? So aerodump ng is a network software used for capturing or sniffing the packets in the air while you are in monitor mode. It is especially suitable for collecting web initialization vector, and it shows all the wireless networks that are around us, and it shows us the detailed information about those networks, and this tool is the basis of many hacking tools. So first run the aerodump ng, and this is the interface of your wire network WLAN 0. So after running this command, it will discover all the network around me, and this program will continue running unless we quit, which is Ctrl C to quit. So as you can see, there are all of those wireless interfaces are running around me. So let's talk about what this is. So ESSID is the name of wireless network that are around us. So this is the wireless name. BSSID is the MAC address of the target network. PWR is the signal strength of the network. So higher network means we have a better signal. As you can see, the signal is very. So beacons are frames which are sent by the network in order to broadcast its existence. Data is the number of data packets. #/s is the number of data packets which are collected in the past 10 seconds. CH is the channel on which the network is working on. MB is the maximum speed supported by the network. ENC is the encryption used by the network such as WEP, WPA, WPA2 and Open. And authorization means AUTH, which is the authentication used on the network such as PHK, which is pre-shared key. So now what you need to do is you need to target my own network named OCN guest. So this I'll task this ACN guest. We will target this wireless network. Then simply type this command. So in this command BSS ID and this one is the MAC address of my target network. Channel 11 is the channel number of my target network. Write basis web is telling us to write or store all the gathered data in a file name called basic web. And WLAN0 is the name of your wireless adapter, and this is the AeroDump NG, which is the basic sniffing tool. Now after this it will show up like this. Now we have a file name like basic web01 which contains the captured data, and AeroDump NG automatically append the 01 with the file name, and there are multiple files created with different extension, but the main file is the basic web.cap which contains all the captured data. So this file contains every URLs, username, password, chat messages and all of those, but the main problem is that all the data is encrypted. So after sniffing process is done, then we will go to our final stage, which is deauthentication attack. Deauthentication attack is used to disconnect any device from any network. This attack can be used on any encrypted network such as web, WPA, WPA2. For this attack to work, you don't need to worry about network key. Also, there is no need to connect to the network. First, type previously that we typed, which is this one. Similarly, that we previously do. So that what did this as? It shows us the list of devices connected with the target network. So currently one network is connected, as you can see. So our goal is to disconnect this device from the connected or the internet. So the program will continue running, so don't stop the program until it completes. Also focus on the lost column which is currently on 0, this one. Then what you need to do is you need to put up this comment. So AeroPlay NG tool is used to launch the deauthentication attack, which will disconnect the device from the network or the internet. So let's talk about what this command is doing. So AeroDump, this is the tool which will be using deauthentication. Minus deauth is the this is the command telling that I want to run deauthentication attack. 10,000 and 1,000 is the number of deauthentication packet that I want to send, and I am just sending a large number of packet to the router and my target device. So it will disconnect my target device for a longer period of time. Then minus a, and this MAC address is the MAC address of the target network, and minus c, this one is the MAC address of the client side which I want to disconnect. So this MAC address is under the station column, as you can see, station column. And WLAN0 is the name of your wireless adapter in monitor mode. So after running AeroPlay NG, the device having MAC address which is 8, this one, will be disconnect from the internet, and lost column search, and the lost column, as you can see, it shows the large number of lost packets. And then this happens and your attack is successful, you can just stop the program pressing Ctrl C from the keyboard, and your deauthentication attack is successful, and you disconnect the device, disconnect any device from the network using this AirPlay tool. So that's how it is. That's how this deauthentication attack works.